Hello, today's review will be probably a bit disappointing for the audience, because I will tell about really great players that most probably vast majority of people won't be able to buy. It's iBasso DX200 limited version made of titanium. If I remember right, only 66 players were created, and they are all sold out. So the only chance to get it is from some aftermarket, if some of owners decide to get rid of his player. But honestly, I really doubt that someone who bought this player will sell it in some future. Why? Because it's a great player. So I won't be making unpacking, I won't describe accessory set and so on, because I've already reviewed DX200 and this one is really close to DX200. If you are interested, just follow the link in the description to the regular DX200 review, and here I will focus on player itself. So it's a pretty big player, as well as DX200. It's same size, same body, same weight, probably pretty close. But as you can see, its material is different. It's really interesting, really nice looking. I really like this look and feel of the polished titanium. Also, iBasso created another version of DX200 made of copper with some gold plating, but unfortunately I didn't have a chance even to listen. When they announced this one, I decided that I really want it, and I've bought it wasting no time. It's pretty big, so let me zoom out a little bit, probably. Zoom out, adjust camera a little bit, I'm sorry, but it's necessary, so it will fit completely. So it's pretty big. It's barely pocketable. I think it's not portable at all. It's more like a player for home, for listening at home. Of course, it's a bit smaller than Aston Kern SP1000, but really close in size. But anyway, if your pockets are big, you can carry it with you. So it's actually tuned version of stock iBasso DX200 with amp1, but it was tuned sonically. But about sound I will tell a bit later. Here is line out, phone out, balanced output, micro SD card slot. On the top there is USB Type-C for charging, SPDIF out, on-off button, volume control, pretty good with good encoder, and 3 buttons for playback controls. Of course, it has sensor screen, it's Android based, and recently iBasso released Android 8.1 for this player, and Lurker released also his addition to this firmware. So now you can have really good, pretty stable version of Android 8.1 with Play Store, with access to root and so on. So I think in terms of firmware it's really great DAP. Of course, maybe it's not the fastest, because it's not as fast as modern smartphones, but it's capable of playing highest resolution files with bit perfect, absolutely bit perfect, because it's one of the few players that output signal directly to digital to analog converter without any transformations, without any internal manipulations. You can use stock player. Actually, I also covered stock Mango player in the reviews, and here it is. As you can see, it's not super fast, but anyway, if you launch it one time, I think it's pretty okay. So you can use stock player, you can use adopted version of Hibi Music, or you can use USB Audio Player Pro, and I actually like UAPP because it's fast, because it's convenient, and it can play Tidal bit perfect. I really like that. In terms of firmware, well, I think pretty normal. Not superb, but pretty normal. I'm not really critical here, because I can live almost with any firmware. But of course the most interesting part is the sound. To speak about the sound, we need some headphones, traditionally, so phone out. And for this review I will use my best pair of in-ear monitors. Here. It's Unique Melody Mason 3rd version. Really great IEMs that are great with everything. And of course with this iBasso it's also. Creating sound for this player, iBasso decided to push their DX200 with stock amplifier to the limits. That player was famous for its natural and detailed and technical representation, and they pushed the detalization to the absolute possible level. Probably it's the most detailed player and probably most uncolored player, most natural player I've tested. Well, Qlos 361 is pretty close, but this one is a bit more forward on the upper mids and treble, so it's a bit more highlighting this monitoring representation. But let's speak about sound in more detail. So, as usual, I've got examples. Bass is perfectly controlled, is absolutely has zero accent, so if you like a more accented representation, you should probably get a regular DX200 and probably get something like amp7 or amp8. Here is bass is absolutely linear, it's deep, it goes to the maximum possible depths in depth world, it's controlled nicely, it has great resolution, great texturing, but it requires, you know, perfect representation from headphones, because headphones with drier low frequencies will sound too dry and too thin. But actually I will speak about it a bit later. As an example for the low frequencies, I've prepared a special playlist with examples. So today we'll focus on probably strange music, some kind of avant-garde and so on. It's pretty well-known group, Diablo Swing Orchestra. They are mixing opera with heavy metal, with some flamenco and tons of other influences. And the song named Gunpowder Chant, at the beginning they got, I'm sorry if I pronounce it incorrectly, didgeridoo, Australian traditional instrument, going pretty low with really low frequencies, and many players failed to represent it correctly, but iBasso DX200T really managed to represent all the tiny nuances of this instrument, and it sound, well, I can't say realistic, but because I didn't hear it in real life, but I think it sound the way it should be. So mids are absolutely uncolored, greatly resolving with a lot of with accent on the micro detalization. So this is a player for those who'd like to get the best possible level of micro details, who want to hear any tiny nuances and so on. Actually, it's a good part, but at the same time it's a bad part, because you know you have to select the best possible recordings, because if every smallest fail in the recording, in the mastering, in the mixing, you will definitely hear, and if some of sound engineers failed or some of musicians failed, you will hear this fail. Sometimes it can really not when a record is good, staging is great, emotions is great, but if recording isn't good, it can be emotionless with flat staging and so on. So it won't add any coloration, so it's really picky for the quality of recordings. Probably it's the absolute record in this parameter. So as an example for the mids, I've got another pretty strange group, the Mars Volta, really great for those who like progressive rock with psychedelia, and their album The Bedlam in Goliath and the track named Iliena. I think I should add track name to the description, because most probably I'm failing to pronounce them correctly. Interesting track with great intro that I like. About like first minute of this track is pretty distorted. It has really strong distortion, and when I first was listening to this album, I was surprised, and I thought that something is wrong with my computer, because the sound was really strange. But then from this distortion born the melody pretty fast, pretty complex and pretty interesting, and it's full of tiny details, and it's full of really great instrumental works, nice work from guitarists, from drummers, unusual vocals, and a lot of details, and this player really great in representing these nuances, so I think you can already understand that it plays this track really nicely. And treble, of course, is also uncolored, you know, it's also absolutely natural, it's flat, with a hint of added aggression to help, you know, to add some clarity to the representation of this dub, and to highlight this. Everything in the treble area is this adds great amount of decays, overtones, high-pitched notes. Treble here is great in terms of layering, nice in terms of attacks and decays, so everything that I really like. If you are treble phobic, probably it's not an option for you, but from all other points of view, it's a great balanced treble. And you know, another name that I will probably fail pronouncing, it's guitarist from Iceland, it's Sigurdur. Oh, I'm sorry, Rognvaldsson. I think even for native speaker it's hard to pronounce. But anyway, it's a great musician. I'm really sorry I can't pronounce his name correctly, but it's great album named Dark Forest. And the track is called Latin. I really recommend you if you like some avant-garde jazz music with rock influences. It has a great violin part here, and this violin is recorded perfectly. You know, I think it's some national specifics because all all people from northern countries are dead serious when it comes to the recording of the jazz music. One of the most perfect examples is Hof Ensemble, and this one is no exception. It's recorded really good, and this violin is really interesting. It has all these high-pitched notes and these overtones with decays, and it requires a lot of attention to the treble from the source, and this player really succeeds here. You know, I won't do any comparisons probably, there is no much sense in creating my traditional review. I can say that it's few subjective thoughts, you know. I'd say that this player beats Aston Cairns Futura because they have similar natural representation, but this one goes even further in terms of technical details, in terms of resolution, in terms of control, and so on. It can be probably compared with Ultima SP1000M, but by level. They have really different representation. Ultima is less aggressive on upper part of frequency range and a bit more so-called has a bit more colored sound, but colored in natural way. So a different approach to creating sound. And actually it's noticeable step forward for the iBasso DX200. So to summarize everything, if you like iBasso DX200, this is a great option because it improves everything in DX200 representation. And you know, I really like to have AMP7 or AMP8 in this titanium version to pair with it, but I really don't think I will get it. But anyway, even with actually it's not a stock AMP1, with modified AMP1, it's a really great technical dub for those who like natural representation, and that's why I've decided to create this review and tell about iBasso's masterpiece. Thank you for attention.